Doggy says that lady is trying to get rid of Grandma.
My daughter said this right after playing with the family dog at my parents' house. Both I and my sister-in-law, who had been called that lady, were taken aback. Hey, what are you saying? I'm so sorry, my daughter. I hurriedly apologized to my sister-in-law, and she replied with a strained smile.
Oh, no, don't worry about it.
My daughter had always claimed she could talk to the family dog, but I dismissed it as childish imagination. What I was more concerned about at that moment was not upsetting my sister-in-law, who lived with my mother and took care of her. That's incredibly rude, you know? I scolded my daughter, but she pouted and said,
But Doggy really did say that.
And then, as she continued speaking, her words shocked me even more. My name is Amelia. I'm currently raising my 5-year-old daughter. That day, I had brought her to visit my parents' house because I heard my mother was not feeling well. At my parents' house, my mother lives with my brother, his wife, and their pet poodle. My mother is never lonely with such a lively household. The house is in my mother's name. My father has already passed away, but he left behind enough wealth to ensure my mother is comfortable in her old age. By the way, the poodle my daughter claims she can talk to is named Max. We've had him since before I got married and moved out, so he must be over 10 years old by now. In human years, that would make him somewhere in his 50s or 60s. My daughter Kate adores Max and always looks forward to playing with him. This time was no different. While I was talking with my mother and sister-in-law, Kate was playing with Max. And then she suddenly made that outrageous statement about my sister-in-law trying to get rid of my mother. Carol, I'm so sorry. I'll make sure to talk to my daughter about this. I apologized profusely to my sister-in-law. Carol smiled awkwardly and said,
Oh, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Although I sensed something off about Carol's response, I was more focused on dealing with Kate. Kate, you need to apologize to Carol. What you said was very rude. I scolded her. Kate, who had been laughing and playing with Max, suddenly got serious.
But it's true. Doggy really said that.
She pouted. And then she began to relay more shocking information she claimed to have heard from the dog.
Listen, it's a secret.
Kate whispered, making sure my mother and Carol couldn't hear.
That lady is putting something weird in Grandma's food.
What? Are you saying Carol is adding something to the food? I asked, bewildered.
I don't really know. Doggy said there's a strange smell in Grandma's food, and every time it's there, Grandma feels sick.
This revelation stunned me because my mother had been inexplicably ill and had been rushed to the hospital multiple times recently. Can Max tell when this happens? I asked Kate, half believing, half doubting. Kate seemed to ask the same question to Max and then said,
Well, when it gets dark, and it's the day they serve meatloaf.
Does Doggy know what meatloaf is?
Doggy understands human words. He remembers because that lady always says, Today's meatloaf day, every time.
Kate continued talking to Max, and then she shared more disturbing information.
On meatloaf days, the strange smell is always there, and it's getting stronger. Doggy says Grandma is getting weaker. The day before yesterday, lots of people came and took Grandma away.
The day before yesterday. My mother had indeed been taken to the hospital by ambulance. The lots of people were likely the paramedics. This recent hospitalization was why I had come to visit. The hospital had done food allergy tests but found no cause, dismissing it as a coincidence. But this seems too coincidental to be random. Could Kate really be talking to the dog? But I still couldn't fully believe it. Then Kate continued.
Doggy has something to say. Doggy heard Uncle and Aunt talking. They don't think a dog can understand human words, so they talk about everything in front of Doggy.
And what did they talk about? I asked, growing more alarmed. Kate relayed that she had overheard them plotting something.
They want Grandma's inheritance. What's inheritance?
You mean inheritance? I gasped. A 5-year-old wouldn't know about inheritance. Could this strange story be true? My mother did have an inheritance from my father, enough to ensure her comfort in old age, including the house and land. But the idea that my kind sister-in-law would harm my mother was hard to believe. I felt confused and couldn't dismiss my daughter's story as mere fantasy.
Doggy loves Grandma and wants to help her. Doggy wants you to do something.
Kate pleaded. Help Grandma? Yes, we must help her. I decided, still skeptical but willing to trust Kate and Max.
So, I just said earlier that lady was trying to get rid of Grandma, right? If we don't act fast, that lady might hide the evidence. I'm sorry, Doggy, for giving us away.
Kate finally realized that because of her actions, her beloved Grandma is in danger, and she's now in tears.
Is Grandma going to die?
Kate asked, almost in tears. No, we'll make sure she's safe. I reassured her. Anyway, as Kate said, we need to act immediately to prevent any tampering with evidence. I need to stop Carol and my brother's conspiracy. Carol had left the room, so I decided to act quickly to find the supposed poison in the kitchen. When I arrived, Carol was rummaging around. What are you doing, Carol?
Oh, Amelia, just organizing the kitchen. There's so much clutter.
She looked uneasy, like she had been caught doing something she shouldn't. Let me help. It must be hard to do it alone.
No, you're a guest.
We're family, not guests. We should help each other. I insisted, starting to help despite her protests. If Carol is poisoning my mother, the poison must be here in the kitchen. I began to chat with Carol to gather information. I'm sorry for the trouble my mother is causing. She was hospitalized the other day.
Yes, the day before yesterday. We're worried about her health.
Carol seemed genuinely concerned, not like someone plotting harm. Then Max barked and rushed into the kitchen, sniffing at a trash bag.
Hey, Max, stay out of the kitchen.
Carol tried to stop him, but Max, despite being called a poodle, is a dignified adult dog. He is about the size of a medium-sized dog. Despite being over 10 years old, he is still strong and managed to break free from my sister-in-law, sticking his nose into the garbage bag to pull something from the trash. What's this? I asked, taking it from Max. It was a package of rat poison. It's still full. Why are you throwing this away?
Well, you know, if Max happens to eat it like he did just now, that would be troublesome, right? It's about decluttering. Rather than that, if Max puts it in his mouth, it would be troublesome, so I'll put it out of reach.
She tried to forcefully take it from Max, but he wouldn't let go of it. However, when I reached out, he casually handed it over to me. I'll put it away. I pretended to put it on a high shelf, secretly pocketing some of the poison. Then I continued helping Carol, determined to find evidence of her wrongdoing. Afterward, I returned to Kate with Max, took the poison bait out of my pocket, and showed it to Kate and Max. Max sniffed the poison bait and snorted. What do you think, Kate? What is Max saying?
This is it. Max says it's the strange smell.
It seems that what was mixed into the meatloaf was indeed this. In small quantities, the strong flavor of barbecue sauce could mask the strange taste. According to my mother, my sister-in-law usually cooked with very strong flavors. When my mother suggested lighter seasoning, my sister-in-law would say,
"Emil's taste buds are getting weaker. I want you to enjoy flavorful food."
This makes sense if the goal was to disguise the taste of the poison bait in the meatloaf with the strong seasoning. I noticed a smell of barbecue sauce coming from the kitchen. Could it be? My sister-in-law was planning to finish my mother off today. I exchanged glances with my daughter. She nodded and gave Max an eye signal as well. The three of us were now fully united.
"I'm sorry, but it's almost time for dinner. Could you please leave?"
My sister-in-law gently spoke to me with a smile. It didn't look like the face of someone about to take a life. My daughter then came up with a clever idea.
Hey, that smell is meatloaf, right? I want to eat it too.
That's right. Since we're here, why don't we stay over?
Yay! I can play with Doggy more.
What? That would be inconvenient.
My sister-in-law was visibly flustered, sweating nervously. What's inconvenient? The fact that you can't poison Mother?
What are you talking about?
You heard my daughter earlier, didn't you? She said you were trying to get rid of Grandmother, according to Doggy. My sister-in-law's expression changed from calm to a sharp glare.
Are you seriously going to believe your daughter's imagination?
Yes, I will. She's my daughter, after all.
You and your daughter are crazy.
But we have proof. I pulled the poison bait my sister-in-law had tried to discard out of my pocket. Her face turned pale. According to Kate, Max says he always smelled this poison in the meatloaf. You served meatloaf the day before yesterday too, right?
How do you know that?
My sister-in-law was visibly shaken. Kate heard it from Max. And every time meatloaf was served, my mom ended up in the hospital.
Well, that was not intentional.
So, you admit it. You mixed something in on purpose. My sister-in-law bit her lip, realizing her slip of the tongue. I already told my mother. She won't eat anything you make anymore.
Why are you saying such awful things? Does everyone believe this delusional little girl?
She pointed at my daughter with hatred, but Kate looked her straight in the eye, unafraid. Max stood in front of Kate, growling protectively. My sister-in-law recoiled in fear. There's no one left in this house to support you, including the dog.
It wasn't on purpose. It just happened to get mixed in while cooking.
I understand. If that's what you say, then I'll choose to believe Carol.
Thank goodness. Amelia, you won't abandon me, right?
Sister-in-law showed a relieved, bright smile, but I retorted to her like this. If that's the case, please let me eat the meatloaf you prepared for Mother.
What? No, you can't do that.
Why not? If it wasn't intentional, then there shouldn't be a problem today, right? I pressed her, and she lowered her head, unable to say anything. Max said my brother was part of the plan. Is that true? She reluctantly nodded. You might as well give up. I'll call the police once my brother returns. My sister-in-law whimpered and collapsed in tears. But why serve meatloaf today? You just served it the day before yesterday.
It had to be today. I needed MIL gone quickly because debt collectors are coming. I promised to pay off the debt with the inheritance. That's why.
She wailed, sobbing for her selfish reasons. I looked down at her in disbelief. She tried to kill my mother for something like that. Unforgivable. I've recorded our conversation. There's no escaping now. My sister-in-law repeatedly apologized, bowing her head. Kate looked puzzled.
Is it over? Is Grandma safe now?
Max licked her cheek reassuringly. Later, my brother was arrested by the police who had arrived earlier. He tried to deny everything.
I didn't do anything. I didn't know.
But my sister-in-law, furious at being betrayed, confessed their conspiracy, and they both ended up behind bars. My mother was incredibly grateful. She said,
If anything happens to me, all the inheritance goes to Amelia and Kate.
Kate cheered as if she had just received candy. Thank you, Mom. But you have to live a long time.
Yeah, Doggy would be sad if you left.
Max barked in agreement. Our laughter echoed in the now peaceful house. How did you like this story? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.
Mommy, who did you go to the amusement park with?
The catalyst for all this was Grace's innocent question. What are you talking about?
This thing shows the places you've been, right? It says, amusement park.
7-year-old Grace pointed at the car navigation system's history with a puzzled expression. When did she learn how to operate it? While I was loading groceries into the car from the supermarket, she must have fiddled with it. Why is there a history for a place I haven't been to? Suspicious, I checked the date, and it was from last Sunday. The only person who used the car that day was my husband, Christopher. He had said he was going for a business golf outing with his boss. Did he go to the amusement park with a friend? But if that were the case, there'd be no need to hide it. Could he be having an affair? I frowned, lost in thought.
Mommy, what's wrong? You look scared. Are you okay?
It's fine. Sorry. I must have accidentally set something. No one went to the amusement park.
Really?
I brushed off Grace's question, trying not to reveal my confusion about Christopher's suspected infidelity, and took a deep breath before driving the car. My name is Valentina. I'm 38 years old. I live with my 7-year-old daughter, Grace, and my 42-year-old husband, Christopher. After getting married, I continued working, but when Grace was born, I became a full-time homemaker. This was Christopher's wish, as he didn't want our child to feel lonely.
Dinner tonight is delicious. The house is clean, and it's really comfortable. Thank you as always.
He used to appreciate me like that. However, about 6 months ago, Christopher's attitude gradually changed. He started complaining, furrowing his brow and saying things like, "Today's meal isn't very tasty. The house is dusty." I kept cooking as usual and maintained daily cleanliness, but it didn't seem enough for him.
What? Are you implying I'm wrong?
I tried to explain, but he snapped.
I'm irritated. I'm going to bed.
He angrily slammed his fork on the table, stood up abruptly, kicked the chair, and headed to the bedroom. At first, I thought it was just a bad mood, but Christopher's behavior worsened over time. He'd say things like, "Since you're a homemaker, work harder for the house," and berate me whenever something went wrong. One day, he criticized my cooking.
What's this? It looks unappetizing.
I reminded him that meatloaf was his favorite, but he retorted,
This is meatloaf? Even dog food is better. I'll throw this away.
Shocked, I watched him discard all the food I'd prepared. His expression seemed triumphant, as if he'd achieved something.
You make garbage despite being a homemaker. Learn to cook better after this lesson.
He said. Frustrated, I fought back tears and escaped to the bathroom, determined not to cry in defeat.
Mommy, are you okay? Did you fight with Dad?
It seemed that our conversation reached Grace, who had already finished dinner and returned to her room. As I walked down the hallway, Grace peeked out from her room, looking concerned. It's just that I made a mistake. Everything's fine. I reassured Grace with a smile before retreating to the bathroom to cry alone. Don't let Grace worry about you like this. And Christopher, maybe he's just venting because of something unpleasant at work. Christopher wasn't the type to share workplace complaints, so I assumed he was bottling up various frustrations. If it was just venting, maybe if I endured it, he'd return to his kind self eventually. However, contrary to my feelings, Christopher's behavior worsened. He said,
I sold about half of your coats and clothes.
I was taken aback. Why?
Because there wasn't enough space for my clothes. It fetched a decent price.
He replied. When I hurriedly checked the closet, my belongings were reduced to a mere handful among Christopher's many items. Not just half, most of it is gone.
You're at home all the time, yet you have more than 2 outfits? That's extravagant. Be more frugal.
Christopher scolded. My possessions consisted of underwear, thin t-shirts, jeans, and the shoes I wore daily. Christopher smirked as he watched my despair. Was it worth enduring this? But Grace needed her father. But Christopher's coldness extended to Grace as well.
Hey, Dad. Today at school.
Grace began, but Christopher interrupted.
Dad's tired. Let's talk about it tomorrow.
Grace persisted.
But Dad, you never listen anymore.
Christopher replied.
I'll listen eventually. Don't trouble me, I'm busy with work.
Grace apologized sadly, and Christopher retreated to the bedroom. This cycle repeated day after day. Being cold even to Grace. But Grace loves her dad so much. For half a year, I've been tormented by not knowing the right course of action, and then I stumbled upon the history of that car navigation system. I was deeply disappointed, yet it made sense of Christopher's recent behavior. But since it's not confirmed he's cheating, I prayed somewhere in my heart that this suspicion wouldn't turn into certainty as I searched the car, but the evidence was clear. A youth-oriented lip balm in the dashboard, earrings in the seat gap. It seems Christopher's mistress is quite a feisty woman. Leaving such evidence seems intentional, as if she's picking a fight with me. I immediately confronted Christopher with these proofs. These were in the car, I said.
So what?
He glanced at the evidence and blatantly looked away, then began to fidget, touching his ear and neck. Whose are these? It's not mine or Grace's. The youth-oriented lip balm and earrings?
I don't know. Grace must have picked them up somewhere.
That can't be true.
What? You're saying I'm cheating?
Isn't that the case? With all this evidence? When I pressed the evidence on him, Christopher threw it at me with all his might. The earrings and lip balm hit my chest and rolled onto the floor.
This is your fabrication. It's not evidence. You're a good-for-nothing housewife, and you dare to suspect your husband and do this. Shame on you.
Christopher shouted this with his eyes wide open and breathing heavily. The more desperately Christopher ranted, the more undeniable the affair became. He's just upset about being caught and looking bad publicly. Being stingy, he wouldn't want to pay for Grace's child support if it came to divorce.
I'm irritated. I'm going to sleep.
Without admitting to the affair, Christopher stormed off to the bedroom with an angry face. I've reached my limit. But is it okay to divorce like this? This alone isn't solid proof. And what about Grace? I don't want to do anything that would make Grace sad. Even in this situation, I was troubled. But no matter how much I thought, I couldn't find an answer. I sighed deeply and gently placed the earrings and lip balm in a drawer, locking it so they wouldn't be thrown away. A few days later, something happened that finally forced me to make a decision. That day, I woke up feeling unwell and stayed in bed. Since I confronted Christopher about the affair, he had been distant, responding with a disinterested "oh, okay" when I mentioned my illness. When Christopher peeked into the bedroom, I foolishly thought he was concerned about my health.
I have some urgent work. Going to the office,
He said abruptly, attempting to close the door. I have a fever. Can you take me to the hospital? I managed to grab his arm, weak from the fever.
What do I care about your health? You can't even manage it properly. You're a failure as a wife.
Christopher said coldly, then forcefully pushed me away. Ouch! He ignored me, shut the door, and left. This treatment was beyond cruel. Frustrated and sad, I fought back tears. Suppressing my emotions, I picked up my phone. Why would he wear cologne to the office? When I clung to Christopher, I noticed a faint scent of perfume. It clicked, the real reason behind his actions. Trusting my instincts, I called the office, timing it for when Christopher would likely be there. As expected, I got the answer I anticipated. This is Christopher's wife. May I speak to him?
Huh? I'm the only one working overtime today.
The male employee replied, sounding genuinely puzzled. His response didn't sound like a lie. Filled with anger, I realized Christopher was lying to meet his mistress, even though his suffering wife needed him. Who's really failing here? This despicable man is unfit to be a husband. It's clear this isn't good for Grace either. At that moment, my doubts vanished. I resolved to divorce Christopher and deliver thorough consequences. A week later, I left Grace at my parents' house and called the mistress over by email when Christopher was at home. I got her contact from Christopher's smartphone. Her name is Natalia. After exchanging a few emails, I found out she was 27 years old. She's the kind of woman who leaves evidence on purpose, so she responded to my call without hesitation. About 5 minutes past the time I had set, the intercom rang. Could you answer the intercom?
Huh? You go.
It's someone who has a deeper connection with you.
To me?
Look, this person. When he looked at the intercom screen, there was a young woman, fiddling with her long hair in annoyance. Christopher's face was a masterpiece when he saw the woman on the screen. His eyes darted around, and he gasped like a fish out of water.
What? Why? How come?
He rushed to the front door in a panic. Soon after, I could hear Christopher and Natalia arguing at the entrance. I peeked out from the living room to see what was happening.
Leave.
No. I'm going to give your wife a piece of my mind. Let me in.
Don't joke around.
Keep it down. It's a nuisance to the neighbors, so please come in quickly.
Oh.
When I said that, Christopher reluctantly let Natalia into the house, concerned about the eyes around us.
What's the big idea calling me out of the blue, you old hag?
Natalia came without a hint of remorse. A woman who leaves that much evidence in a car wouldn't come modestly, would she? I wasn't fazed because I knew Natalia was brazen. I called you two here because of your affair. As soon as I said that, Christopher turned pale, while Natalia remained nonchalant.
She's a junior at the company, and I'm just close to her because I'm her mentor.
Really? Is that the kind of mentoring you do? How indecent.
It's work mentoring, obviously.
Ignoring Christopher's pathetic lies, I pulled out the earrings and lipstick I had kept in the drawer and thrust them at Natalia. These are yours, aren't they?
Oh, you noticed my little parting gift.
So it was on purpose.
I wanted to make you aware of my existence and make you jealous. Your husband has been neglecting you and Grace to have fun with a young, fresh woman.
Really? You have some nerve. Natalia laughed at me mockingly, with a look of composure. I was utterly disgusted by her attitude.
No! She's just making things up. That's not Natalia's.
Come on, Chris. There's no need to be scared of such an old hag.
Just shut up.
There's plenty of other evidence, you know?
What?
As I laid out the evidence, Christopher's expression grew increasingly anxious, and he began to sweat profusely from his forehead. First, there's this hotel point card that was in your wallet.
Ew. Snooping through Chris's wallet is the worst.
Natalia exclaimed dramatically next to Christopher, but I continued without paying her any mind. This is the hotel receipt. And it seems Natalia is quite foolish.
Huh?
This is a two-shot photo that Natalia posted on her blog. The photo on the table showed Christopher and Natalia cozily arm in arm. There were also photos that were quite risque for mere colleagues.
You! Why did you post such a photo?
You are going to marry me, right? So there's no problem.
So you said that.
No!
That's right. Chris promised to divorce that rotten vegetable of a woman and marry me.
Natalia said this proudly, snorting through her nose and showing me a smug face. Next to her, Christopher was holding his head as if it was the end of the world, seemingly oblivious to his surroundings.
You're a wrinkled old hag who's lost her feminine charm. Can you not interfere with the pure love between me and Chris?
What's pure about cheating?
Chris and I are destined for each other. It was just bad timing when we met.
If that's the case, he should divorce me first before dating.
We were bound by such a strong bond that we couldn't wait.
Natalia was confident throughout. She believed without a doubt that she was Christopher's true love and shamelessly spouted embarrassing words one after another. If you're bound by such a strong bond, is it okay to slack off at work and talk about love?
You know about that too?
Did you think you could enjoy yourself at a hotel with this woman during work hours? I had all this investigated using my savings from when I was single, hiring a detective agency. When I presented that evidence, Christopher finally collapsed to his knees, muttering an inaudible,
Ugh.
I've already consulted a lawyer, so I'll be claiming $30,000 in damages for infidelity from each of you.
Huh? There's no way I can pay that.
She showed a panicked expression and threw her lipstick at me, but I easily brushed it aside. I have already contacted Christopher's parents and Natalia's parents about this matter.
No way. You've even contacted both parents? Is this a lie? Even to our parents?
There's no way you talk to Mom and Dad.
Also, we've reported to the company that you two were going to hotels during work hours.
You told the company too?
If they find out, we could get pay cuts or even get fired.
You're going this far.
But that's not all. We're also claiming $80,000 in child support for Grace from you.
When did you become so heartless? You're not the Valentina I know.
Up until now, I had been obedient to Christopher, so he probably never expected me to corner him so ruthlessly. He looked at me as if seeing a stranger for the first time. Nothing has changed about me. It's you who has changed, isn't it?
But
He sighed again, defeated. Meanwhile, Natalia seemed dissatisfied.
I don't care if I get fired. Chris and I are starting a new life together.
please, forgive me.
Christopher clung to me, desperate and apologetic.
Huh? Chris, what are you saying?
I don't want a divorce. I don't intend to start a new life with you.
What? You promised to leave the old hag and marry me.
That was just to create a certain atmosphere. I never planned to divorce Valentina.
You said you'd sacrifice meals and clothes for me, that it was fun. Wasn't it all about wanting a divorce?
It's just that seeing Valentina's distressed face became strangely enjoyable. I thought you'd always be obedient and never mention divorce.
Unbelievable. From the start, you never intended to marry me. You're the worst.
Can I marry a foolish woman who posts two-shot photos online while keeping our affair a secret?
What's that? So cruel.
Natalia looked crestfallen.
Please, Valentina. I promise never to cheat again. Can't you overlook this?
He grabbed my arm, clinging to me. It was the opposite of when I stopped him from leaving during my illness. You're unfit as a husband and a father. There's no choice but divorce.
We're still a couple. If a husband apologizes this much, it should touch your heart.
But soon we won't be a couple anymore, and I see no sign of remorse. It's divorce, no questions asked. I stood my ground, and Christopher finally gave up, releasing my arm. His face had aged dramatically in just a few hours. I handed him the divorce papers I had prepared in advance. Grace's belongings are already at my parents' house. I'll be staying there, so fill out the divorce papers and have your lawyer contact me. I have no business here anymore. I have no lingering feelings for Christopher. Next to the divorce papers, I placed a lawyer's business card and walked toward the door.
This is too much.
Why do you look like a victim? Give me back my life. You traitor.
Ah!
As I tried to leave the room, Natalia pounced on Christopher like an angry cat, scratching his face with her elaborately manicured nails.
Ouch! Help me!
I'll never forgive you, you scumbag. Stop messing around.
Ignoring Christopher's outstretched hand, I left our familiar home behind. Afterward, Christopher, who had brought the divorce papers to the lawyer, was covered in scratches all over his face. Not only did Natalia scratch his face, but she also wreaked havoc inside the house. I promptly submitted the divorce papers, and Christopher and I divorced. His affair during work hours was deemed severe, leading to his dismissal from the company. Natalia faced the same fate. Due to the chaos he caused in the apartment, Christopher was evicted. To pay the combined alimony and child support, he borrowed money from a risky financial institution, working tirelessly day and night to repay it. Natalia, once living with her parents, was also kicked out. She borrowed money from the same financial institution as Christopher, working overnight shifts to make ends meet. As for me, I decided to stay with my parents for a while and focus on re-entering society. I'll shower Grace with even more love to ensure she doesn't feel lonely. How did you like this story? If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to the channel. Let's see you again in the next video.